Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we're playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and today we're going to be starting Case 2 of Resolve. So, this is the Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro. We did that case, the Clouded Kokoro in Adventures, and I guess now we're going to have to think back on things that happened, and it's all related to this whole overarching story that we've got going on that involved Kazuma and Dr. Wilson and just all of these government secrets. So without further ado, let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road.
That's right, where
As the
the
victim
knife
lay
was
at
flung out
death's
the
door,
window.
The mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern exchange student from his harrowing plight than in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night.
This is the one that we haven't heard about.
I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas.
Boy?
Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
Oh my. So what's gonna happen? Let's find out. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer just starting out on my journey. Yay, we're back to Ryunosuke. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Yeah, and this is our little office. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, where I run my legal consultancy, of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale. A tale which was now about to awaken from slumber. Oh boy. Thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. Is this the one that Susato sent at the end of Case 1? Let's see. Oh, we're hungry. Well, I guess it's time for breakfast. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I'd better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. Oh boy. So here we go. 30th of August, 7:28 a.m. Sholmes' suite. Alright. Ah, Runo, good! I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning. Shush, not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the obtruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, I see. So that's it. Can you back up, please? Sir? The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have this very morning met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. I mean, yeah, can I talk now? But of course, though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. Oh, it has? And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. Harley pulled your button off? Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped. Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Harley, Bruno said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. He just wasn't paying attention. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. All right then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it gets cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend. Oh boy. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes's lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, as published in Rent's magazine. She's also the daughter of, we think she's the daughter of Dr. Wilson who was killed. So, Mr. Naruto, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it really? That's right, and she had some rather startling news, in fact. Intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh yes, what fun! Alright, let's talk to him. Miss Susato's letter. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning by international post. Oh, how lovely! Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Oh, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do. We helped the man. Twice. You know, in those two cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago. The mustache twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. He didn't have two mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those two cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Did they, though? I mean, one might wonder. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. Yeah, it made a real deep impression. A very deep impression they made on you, clearly. Exactly. So, what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Oh yes, it's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Mr. Sato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago, for what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Mrs. Sato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case, yes. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript, ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said, very mysteriously as well. Really, I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Mrs. Sato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? Let's find out. It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. I think it said he was injured. No. It just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, the news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home? Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that, I wonder what Mrs. Sato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? He's already dressed. He's like, I'm ready to go. Ah, well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. Alright. He scuttled off rather quickly there. Indeed he did. He doesn't want to talk about it. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. So something suspicious is definitely going on. Aha! I found them at last! Iris, are they... The notes are about the case, that's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Runo? I mean, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit. Alright. We're going to have to read those notes. And so... Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in the court that followed. Reliving every detail. I just need to find a clue. And I have all the time in the world. Because, of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Oh boy. Well, that's shocking. Unexpected. It was 6 months ago, a mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. But he still practiced law after this, so I wonder what happened. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. Yep, Soseki. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyous, jubilant jubilation was the man's reaction after the trial. But his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. What happened next? We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to the Barts at once. Oh boy. What'd she say? So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. What do we find out? It's going to be interesting. 21st of February, 5:30 a.m. St. Bartholomew's Hospital, recovery ward. Well, there you are at last. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh. You're late. What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. And of course that's what matters. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy, and feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so the victim is over there. She only just regained consciousness. Oh boy. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. Of course. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back. Her name is... Ah yes, here we are. Miss Green. Alright, well first let's examine what's all around, because all of this stuff is new. And there's a rat on the ground. There's this. This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? Ah, I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruto. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you'd call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Alright. Got a photograph here. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. Oh, okay, maybe that's like the one who uses the mannequin, right? Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? Could be, or related, one of the two. My, Mr. Naruto, I didn't know you had a sense for the matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Alright, and then we got an easel there. Anything else? What's this say? Ah, this looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed? What is this place, a zoo?
You know, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park.
For the pigeons, yes. This is a person. Poor woman. I hope she hasn't read this. Alright, what about the rat?
Eek! A mouse, Mr. Naruhodo! An enormous mouse!
Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best.
But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump.
I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you were thinking. Alright, she's got a bag here.
That must be the bag of Miss Green's personal belongings. She would have been brought directly here after she was found stabbed on the pavement, though. I expect a friend or family member probably brought some things for her.
Alright then, let's see what's inside. A change of clothes, no doubt, and...
No, Mr. Naruhodo, you must never scrutinize a young maiden's personal belongings.
But the young maiden might have chocolates, or biscuits, or caramel. Alright, are you gonna confiscate them, or... let's see what's up here. There are lots of bottles in that cabinet, aren't there? Do you think it's safe to keep them like that?
If you were a patient here, I feel sure you'd take some medicine by mistake when you are half asleep.
That is a worry, but at least the cabinet has a lock, if it's only a flimsy-looking one.
Oh, I've no doubt you'd manage to unlock that somehow while you were half asleep as well.
There are limits even to what I can do when I'm half asleep, you know, Miss Sasato. Alright, we got some paper here, too. Alright, what do we got over here? There's that note. We got this here. What does this one say? Ah, this looks like the treatment notes for whoever's occupying this bed. Let's see. Do not permit to run around the hospital.
The patient doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so...
He or she is probably running around the hospital then.
Oh dear, how worrying.
What's worrying is why they haven't discharged the patient yet. And then we got more bottles up here. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet. Look. I'm not sure it's safe leaving them in reach of everyone like this.
Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two.
Well, at least there seems to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors.
I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worry that you'd break the lock.
Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Mrs. Otto. Alright, anything else to examine? I think we're pretty good. Let's go ahead and talk to Miss Green. Good morning. Hello, I'm, Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan.
Oh no, was it your knife that... Are you the man who...
No, I'm a lawyer.
And I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no, was it your knife then? Are you the one? No, I assure you. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come give you our best wishes. Best wishes for me? Thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back.
I don't think that's related, actually.
Gosh, gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down.
Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. Alright. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green.
It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? Well, I've been here in the hospital, I mean.
Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly by none other than I, Sherlock Holmes.
Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved the case.
Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green?
Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no. We're all so relieved you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really we are.
With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. And she's like, I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. Alright, about yourself. Let's find out about her. So you're an artist, are you, Miss Green?
Oh no, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts? Great Britain is such a wonderful country.
Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts?
Oh, no, actually. I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road.
I see. How very interesting.
Oh, no, is it?
Brixton has some 10 steps away on the underground from here. And Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Centre. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not, but Briar Road is far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Moustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine art student to be walking in such a district, that's all. She's just like all depressed. What's this? She suddenly clammed up.
Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself prying into a young maiden's private affair.
Ha 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 ha! Oh dear me, do forgive me.
If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things.
Oh yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Alright, so she's gotta pack up. Is Mr. Narrow Fodder here? Mr. Narrow Fodder? Narrow Fodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Ah, Mr. Narrow Fodder, good, this is for you. It's a message from Mr. Soseki Natsume. What kind of names? Mr. Natsume sent a message to me?
But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume?
Exactly, what's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? What are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh, well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? I mean, dude, you just took it from us. How could we have seen it? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls, a case of murder no less. We must depart at once.
Murder?
Oh boy. Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. And that will be entirely convenient.
Convenient? What do you mean?
It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? Oh boy.
Hell, a fire occurred once.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Another murder. It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address? He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed at the time. But we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. 21st February, 7:18. Mr. Natsume's lodgings, ground floor. Oh, that's the guy. Okay, I wondered why he never made a reappearance. He showed up at the beginning of case 3, just kind of like, you know, I don't know, acting weird, and then like never showed up again for the rest of adventures. And I was like, okay, whatever. But here we go. Here he is. What on earth?
Oh my! The gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire.
Mr. Natsume.
Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court yesterday. I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle.
I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache.
Ah! Not the horrible Herr Lock Sholmes. Shoo, shove off. Show yourself the door. I never invited you. Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume.
I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? There. Tisk, here they are, already. Busybodies. Inspector Gregson, what a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face at the crime scene, Sholmes. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Or good morning to you too, Sunshine. Oh boy. So I wonder what we'll be able to examine. We'll have to see. He might not let us look at anything. Alright, I said hands up. You're gonna mess up my crime scene. Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all. No chance. I know your kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Ugh, so someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air here, isn't there? Alright. It sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. Alright, fine. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shakespeare. Right. Okay. Okay. Sure. Sure. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss as it happens, or just dead.
Mr. Shakespeare.
It was the landlord, old Mr. Garrideb, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fellow didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garrideb got worried and kicked the door down. But doesn't Mr. Garrideb have a bad leg? Ah, yeah, you're right there. It was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san? The victim was pretty hard up, it seems, even done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, and no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in this house. A miserable life and a miserable end to it. So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying it's because the fellow looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious, but I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the cohabiter. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you?
Oh dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again.
It certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he?
Poor man. How unfortunate.
Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fellow's been a goner that long. The body's still warm. Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Alright, so is there anything else we can look at? I don't think we can actually look at anything on the crime scene. We can just observe visually, I think. Alright, so let's talk to Mr. Natsume. What a terrible thing to have happened.
It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences.
So the victim lived here on the ground floor and your room is just one story up, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose.
So did you know the victim? Were you friends? Dot 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 dot. Lots of dot dot dots. Hey, Zavengor, welcome in. How's it going? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it?
Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever enter his room? Never. On my honor, I swear it. What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Maybe just a little bit. Yeah, probably.
When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. Through that inspector, over there.
Oh, there's Mr. Herlock Sholmes. We'll talk to him now. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Yeah, it looks like you're running in a still photo.
Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery?
Patience, my dear madam, patience. We've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. Well, as long as that's all you've deduced.
My goodness! But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes?
Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life.
Ah.
Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow?
No, don't mind me. Forget I was here.
Okay. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips.
Nonsense! Ah,
Alright, Mr. Natsume, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes's deductions?
no. Please, pretend I'm not here.
That's basically impossible.
Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant.
Impossible to ignore.
You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail.
Oh boy, are we gonna have a deduction extravaganza? But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will befold our eyes this time? So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Oh joy, joy, oh joy. The game is afoot. Alright, so our first topic, the cause of death, and we think that... Alright. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful, indubitably. Why is the soap set so purposely upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper. In fact, yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. It appears the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of this plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Okay. Though personally I have greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. Gross. Alright, so, poisoning from soap ingestion. No. Alright, topic 2, suicide or murder? The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? A single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I mean, the lock's broken because they kicked it in, right? Though forced open now at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from which he wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his tragic end in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. Wow, the puns. That's like so bad. No possible perpetrator present. Okay, disagree. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. Wow, It's definitely time to course correct that one for sure. Look at Susato's face. She's like, there's a bunch of dotting going on. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing.
How extraordinary!
In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut.
And did it?
As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilt the contents of my stomach, yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did.
There's something that troubles me as well, actually.
Oh, what's that?
It's Mr. Natsume.
Ah,
I couldn't help notice him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye, almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. No, nonsense.
well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last.
I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deduction may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth.
Of course. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do.
Yes, we must pick out the keywords in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place.
Oh boy. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Alright, course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes, we got some correcting to do. So we think the cause of death is poisoning by soap ingestion. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, one half of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposely upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact, yes. Could it be the man was about to eat it? Of course. The fork reveals the answer. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something or about to eat something.
Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks.
And of course, only half the bar of soap is left on the plate.
But might there be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap.
Alright, so let's look. We have the teacup. Can we look at this? What's in the teacup? Do you think he was drinking tea with his soap?
The cup's empty, so there's no way of knowing.
Ah, how about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water. He was dissolving the soap so he could gulp down as much as possible.
Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap lover that he's been made out to be.
We've got a stain here, too. Is there anything we can do with this? Can we look at the fork? I suppose you'd eat soap with a fork, would you?
I don't think it's a question of which implement you'd use. You shouldn't eat soap, full stop.
Agreed. But why? Why does the man have a fork in his hand?
Oh dear, I understand your frustration, Mr. Naruhodo, but please don't take it out on me. The point is, if we decide the man used this fork to eat the soap, we wouldn't be changing Mr. Sholmes' deduction. So we really ought to consider some other clues.
Alright, what about the soap itself? Can we look at that? What about this? What else can we look at? He's got... Oh, there's the other half of the soap. Maybe he was trying to cut it in half. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamspeare must really have loved the stuff.
Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at the soap. You see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table.
What the? How can that be?
I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart.
Okay. Let's see. Let's present that. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table, in short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really, for no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Not if he didn't eat soap. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then.
Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it.
If the soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I'd want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all.
Invite me. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it?
That's going to be the cup, right? Yes, a Western vessel for serving infusions of dried tea leaves.
It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Stop putting on airs. And it's empty.
Ah, so we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest he was drinking tea.
My thoughts exactly.
So we present that. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room, which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. That's a much better conclusion. Alright, so now the next one is going to be simple. Obviously, it had to have been murder. Who would poison themselves, right? The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's Last Supper. Did the man dine and die alone? The single teacup suggests the answer. The Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deduction so far.
Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shakespeare was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me
is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Shom suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems.
We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues.
Alright, so what do we got? Oh, he's got a teacup in his hand. The other teacup. It's right there. It's another Western vessel for infused.
It's a teacup. And it too is empty.
Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand,
we can assume that this is the cup from which Mr. Shakespeare was actually drinking.
But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it.
Yes, I know exactly how you feel.
But we must.
Take that!
Oh boy. Did the man dine and die alone? The other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along. In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's Last Supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night taking tea with the victim.
What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly, unreasonable.
To draw a conclusion of such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know who exactly was in the room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now.
I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the how do you pronounce that? Halcyon days of eating too much soap.
But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about.
Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo.
No, I suppose not. Time to look around again. We have an empty bottle.
It's empty.
Empty of liquid, but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it?
It makes me think you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time.
Father Susadason's quip in response was cleverer than my original riddle. We also have some books. Can we look at the books? At first glance, it seems the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially.
I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read, The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gaboro.
Those are the 3 books that Soseki-san had gotten, right? Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before.
It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day.
What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them, that's right.
And now those 3 titles are here in the room of the victim.
Yet Mr. Natsume claims never to have been here before. What does this mean, do you think?
I really don't know what to make of it.
Alright. Sadly. Pile of familiar books. Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite Alright, so it's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a secondhand bookshop.
That's just a coincidence.
In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. He cannot?
No, never, non-negotiable.
This guy. If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could have only brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. After he got out, or the dancing. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor... sadly, was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Oh, that guy. And thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes' great deduction. Oh boy. Soseki Natsume at the scene, of course. Deduction is complete, of course. I mean, it's an unfortunate conclusion, but it is, in fact, our conclusion. It's okay.
Not again, not again, not again. Not again.
Well then, Mr. Natsume, it would appear you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard again.
But wait. Hold your horses.
Yes.
Door, key, locked, entry, exit, entirely impossible.
He's so flustered, he's being even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy.
What?
You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure.
But... Misery me!
Poor guy. Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache.
Ugh, you horrible Sherlock Holmes.
He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting.
Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but you'll have to help me, please, please. I'm innocent.
Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it.
One more thing.
Oh, yes?
My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me.
Oh, poor kitty. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken, Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. That guy. Thanks to the incriminating deductions of the great detective. He's just like, job well done. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. I mean, yeah, it does. It does belong to us. Whoops. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now.
Yes, that's right. And of course...
What?
Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamspear.
Ah, Mr. John Garadab, yes.
I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual.
Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. All right. Well, we will begin our examination of the crime scene and interviewing our suspects in the next episode. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out and exactly how this case somehow made it so we can't practice law again, because we know he practiced law after it. So we'll see as we continue to go through the case. But if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/TheR27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/TheR27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye.